Hey, you learning a language and you're wondering when should you start speaking a new language? Especially when some polyglots say, hey, speak from day one, and others say, no, wait a while so you can actually listen and take it in first. So wait, what do you do? So in this video, I'll break down when you should start speaking depending on a couple of key factors and give you some tips on what you should do before you should start speaking. Hey, I'm Genevieve, language coach here, and decided to name the channel Break Out and Speak because that is my goal for you, to help you break out and actually speak and use that language in the real world. So the question is today, when should you break out and speak? Now here's the danger though. What happens to most people, probably, I'm gonna say, happening to you, is that they say one of three things. A, I'll speak when I'm ready to speak. B, I'll speak when I know more. Or C, I know the language. I'll speak when I need to speak it. Any of these apply to you? Sound familiar? Problem with that is that people wait too long to start speaking the language, and there are a whole bunch of negative things that can happen from that. If you don't speak, you'll never feel ready. It's actually a myth that you will just magically one day feel ready. It's totally normal to feel nervous or stuck when you go to speak a language, and actually I was there too. Another myth is I'll speak when I know more. See this goalpost, you know, in football, right? And then you get closer and then it moves and your target keeps on moving. So the closer you get to your goal, the goal keeps going further away. And that's the problem with that. It goes back to the first one, of feeling ready. You feel more ready when you know more stuff. I will give you that, but it's not like you reach this magical level, like in a video game, that you unlock a new level and you feel totally comfortable. It doesn't happen that way. Now, it does help to know more of the language, especially if you're the kind of person that wants to get it right. I feel you, but it's going to be a big mistake and really hold you back if you wait till you know more to start speaking that language. And the third case that I see a lot is that people actually know the language. They understand it. They can even possibly read and write it, but then they think, oh, okay, yeah, when I need to speak, I'll speak. And then they go to speak. Guess what happens? They can't speak. So if you are guilty of waiting until you feel ready, waiting until you know more, or know the language and waiting until you have to speak it, all of those are big mistakes to avoid. So when should you actually start speaking a new language? So let's get into it. First question that's super important: how similar is the new language that you're learning to your native language or another language that you already know? And wait, not just the language itself. And here's the key difference: how similar are the sounds of the new language to your own language? So let's say you're learning a Romance language like Spanish or French, Italian, Portuguese, etc. There are, even though it doesn't seem like it when you're first learning the language because it feels like a different language, there actually is a lot of overlap. There are a lot of sounds that are shared in the languages, so you're actually starting off with more than half of the sounds, and that the rest of the stuff is the new stuff. Now, take that in comparison where all of this stuff is new stuff. All of the sounds are new sounds. You can compare it to, for example, another type of skill. For example, if you already knew how to swim and do a freestyle stroke going forward, and you were trying to learn how to do backstroke, that's a smaller gap, versus if you've never seen a pool before and you're trying to learn both of them, but you definitely can get there. Now, I'm a really strong believer in learning the language that you most want to learn. So if a language is not similar to one that you already know, don't worry, you can definitely still get there. So step one, before you even start speaking a language, in the very beginning, a key step is taking the time to truly listen to the language. Open up your ears. Try to hear all the sounds of the language and try to pick up on the new things. Now, it is a process that gets refined over time. Absolutely, don't worry if it all sounds Greek to you. That's kind of normal. That's what it should sound like in the beginning. Same thing goes with pronunciation. All right, if you want to take in the sounds of a language, you can spend about a month just listening and not speaking just yet. If you want to, from the beginning, you can go for it. Or the language is not similar to one that you know, you can take another month or two to listen. Now, I would not recommend to go longer than that. Why? Well, first of all, let's define speak a language. Yes, eventually it is working up to having conversations, but in the beginning, it is just saying things out loud. Even saying things out loud in the beginning can be helpful to you while learning a language, as you work up towards being able to authentically speak on your own. And what if you don't? There is a risk if you don't. So I understand why, completely do. I feel you. Actually, that was me years ago. However, if you don't, here's the trap you might fall into. You might feel that you know some of the language, but you'll get really frustrated. You feel like you won't be able to express yourself. You'll feel like you won't be able to say the things that you want to. And the problem with that is you might actually lose motivation and potentially give up. And actually, that happened to me the first time I was trying to learn French. Felt like I wasn't making progress. Eventually, just motivation sputtered out and I gave up on it. I came back to it later, but that's a different story for a different day. So some people say speak from day one, and there are advantages to that because, first of all, it gets you out of your head thinking that I need to speak perfectly, which it's impossible task. But it's not the point in the beginning. The beginning, it's kind of like, the wheels are a little rusty. You're trying to smooth them out. And that's a process that happens over time. Now, I can also see if you're learning a language that's very, very dissimilar to something that you already know, let's say Japanese, Arabic, etc., where the sounds are nothing like English, that you might want to take a little bit longer listening. However, I would really encourage you to start speaking because I would say probably 97% of people wait too long to start speaking that language. So that probably means I'm talking to you. Is it possible to start speaking too early? Well, if the grand majority of people are waiting too long to start speaking, for the rest of the three of you who are maybe rushing into things, I still would argue that that's not a terrible strategy, as long as you are taking the time to listen, to really listen to that language. There are two skills that develop separately. Is your listening comprehension and your speaking ability. Yes, of course, they're related. However, as you refine one, you also refine the other one. Because as long as you are also working on listening, your listening skills will improve, your speaking skills will improve, and you have a head start in the... Imagine if you're running a race. Do you want to start at the same time as everybody else? Do you want to start behind everybody else? Or do you want to freebie start an hour before everybody else? I mean, that choice is up to you. And the other really big advantage if you start speaking earlier rather than later is you get to start enjoying the language even more. You'd be able to go out and connect with people. You can potentially go on a trip and be all right communicating, even if it's badly, even if it's with a couple words here and there, even if it's not with perfect pronunciation. You can start using the language in the real world after a very short amount of time if you start speaking, even if it's just a little bit. Highly encourage you to start speaking as soon as possible. Break out and speak, because it's the best part of knowing a language. It's the part that can change your life. It's the part that's going to bring you joy, at least for most people, where your goals include speaking and communicating and getting around and being able to use the language in the real world. If you're interested in knowing more about what I do as a coach to help people get out in the world and actually speak and feel comfortable doing so, feel free to check the description. Until the next time, happy language learning and catch you soon.